Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Ian Patrick here, and it's time for yet another turkey review. Can't believe it's already been a year. As you can see, I don't have my typical pilgrim buckle hat. I have a different hat this year. Um, I can't find where that pilgrim hat is. I'm shocked that it lasted as many years as it did. Every Thanksgiving, I like to watch a classic film that has to do with the pioneers or the explorers, or just movies that deal with the relationships between Indians and the first settlers of America. I love watching films like that because when I was growing up, we would always, we would have little plays where some kids would be the pioneers, some would be the Indians, and we all came together and feasted together. Last year, I watched some pretty good explorer, settler type films. This year, I do have one classic explorer film for us to watch, and what a film it is because it revolves around the most famous explorer of all time, and I'm talking about, of course, Christopher Columbus. And that is the title of today's movie that we watched, and here is my VHS copy of it. As you can see, Fredric March starred in it, and this is kind of a funny copy because it's got this gold emblem on it that says special anniversary 500 years edition, because 1492 is when Columbus discovered the new world, and this VHS came out in 1992, so that's interesting to see. If you can see some of the pictures. No, it's kind of hard to see. Don't pay attention to that 4 stars at the top, by the way, because this is not a 4-star film. So Christopher Columbus came out in 1949. It was a Universal International picture directed by David MacDonald. And as I said, it stars the great Fredric March. I love Fredric March. He's good in just about everything he's ever been in. And his wife actually was also in this film. His wife in real life played Queen Isabella of Spain. Florence Eldridge was his wife in real life, and she played Queen Isabella. And we also had Derek Bond. I like to note Derek Bond because he was in Dickens' Nickleby, and we reviewed that movie not too many years ago, I don't think, but I love that film, and Derek Bond was a really good British actor. And we also have Francis L. Sullivan, who also was in, he was the big guy in Great Expectations and Oliver Twist, another good British character actor. Now, I don't have many notes on this film. I'll just sort of dig right in to the plot of the story. I mean, we all know Christopher Columbus. It's sort of sad that Columbus has turned into a controversial character in history today. I'm not going to dive too deep into that, but I will say I'm a big fan of Christopher Columbus. I grew up sort of idolizing how brave he was to take the adventure across the ocean, not knowing what was in front of him. But anyway, so the interesting thing about this picture is it starts out with Christopher Columbus's story in Spain. Now, not many people know this, but Christopher Columbus was actually Italian, and I've had the privilege of living in Italy and Spain, and honestly, in both countries, you will see Christopher Columbus memorials, monuments, statues all over the place, especially in Spain. You'll see a lot of Queen Isabella and Columbus memorials for them. And so like the first hour of the film centers on Columbus trying to get funded for this grand adventure. Now, at the time, people didn't even know that the world was round. They thought it was, a lot of people thought it was flat. And Columbus was convincing people that it's round and you can go all around the world. If you go that way enough, you'll eventually hit India. And it starts out where Columbus is with his son, sort of walking in the countryside, and he stumbles across this. It's like a monastery where monks, Catholic monks, are living, and we learn that he actually kind of knew who was going to be there, because one of the monks who used to be right under Queen Isabella is now at this monastery. And he explains to him that he has this divine belief, this divine dream that he will discover a new world. And I can't remember the name of the monk, but I'm sure he's a real character in history. He says, I'll put in a good word with you with the queen. It's this whole build up to the adventure is interesting. There's a lot of scenes where Fredric March, where Columbus has to go to the court and argue with the Spanish court that, yes, my idea is true. It's not just a dream. There is another world, and I'll explain it with science. And March, of course, is a great actor, and he's great at delivering his lines. I will say he looks a little funny in this movie, but not a big deal. The wardrobe was great in this film. But going back to the plot, there's a lot of scenes of him arguing with Francis L. Sullivan's character, Francisco. Francisco wants him to fail, basically. This is sort of the only conflict in the film, and it's such a petty little conflict that it as you watch the movie for 45 minutes to an hour, you kind of think, okay, well, when are we going to get to the Columbus adventure, the Columbus expedition across the ocean? And it took so long for him finally to get approved. And it's interesting because at first they weren't going to approve him. Finally, it took a lot of convincing to Queen Isabella. I mean, an hour's worth for her to approve of his voyage. And so finally we get to the voyage, and he takes Derek Bond's character, Diego, who I believe he was some sort of medical person, doctor of some sort. He wants to go with him on this adventure, and not a Plymouth Adventure. I reviewed that so many years ago. I do not like that movie very much, but of course Plymouth Adventure is a good movie for this time of year. The only time of the year that I would recommend watching Plymouth Adventure. Not everyone agrees with that, but I'm digressing a lot. So anyway, they go on this adventure across the ocean, and I believe they actually built real ships for this movie. They take 3 ships across the ocean, and there's some historically accurate parts to the film that I didn't know about, or just didn't remember, that during the voyage across the Atlantic Ocean, there was some sort of mutiny that was going to take place on the ship, where I guess the sailors were getting fed up. They didn't believe in Columbus, and of course they were in fear for their lives. Columbus probably could have been thought of as some sort of madman who, we're just going along with this madman's dreams and thoughts that there's some new world out there. So there was a mutiny that was going to occur until finally land was spotted. And once land was spotted in the movie, finally this idea of a mutiny calms down. But there is a little conflict of a battle. They have a little bit of a battle. This movie is not a swashbuckler film, so that's really the only little bit of adventure action that we get in the entire film. This is kind of more of a historical drama picture if I had to choose a genre for it. So anyway, we all know that Columbus discovers the New World. I believe he landed somewhere in Cuba or around that area, and he meets with the Indians, the natives there, and they don't look like the Native Americans that we had on the East Coast of America. They don't look like Indians that John Smith would have found in Jamestown. They don't look like that at all, or what the Pilgrims would have found up in Plymouth. So, but they were accurate in showing that, because I think the Indians that they showed in Christopher Columbus really did look like, they would have been more islander natives. And it shows that, I do like that Columbus sort of emphasizes belief of, okay, we are here to find gold and to bring riches back to Spain, but we are also here to Christianize the natives that are here. And that was an important part of a Spanish expedition, whether you believe in it or not, whether you believe in Christianity or not. That was part of the mission of the Spanish back then. Of course, they were looking for gold and to become rich, but Christianizing and was a big mission and big part in later adventures that we may watch in future Thanksgivings together that the Spanish did. So he discovers the New World, and when when he goes back to Spain, he's a hero. Everyone loves him. It's interesting because he brings back some slave natives with him to Spain, but the Spanish government, in the end, Queen Isabella doesn't like that. She wants to free them right away. And he also brings like parrots back from the islands. He brings parrots, and note the scene where the little parrot that he brings back says something like "Long live the Queen" or something silly like that. But it's really sad because Christopher Columbus, it shows up to his death, he goes back to the New World and becomes some sort of governor. This is like getting into the part of Columbus's life that I'm sure most people don't know. But Columbus goes back, he's governor, but he's not popular as a governor, and the Spanish government demands that he is sent back. And he's sent back in chains, which is probably historically accurate and sad. But he was retired from, he was older at this point, but he was retired from his political duties. And I don't believe he went back to the New World. You can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that. And it's sad, but the ending is so true, because I think the ending was the best scene, not because the movie wasn't that great and sort of uninteresting, but because March has this little speech where Columbus says, none of them will be remembered, talking about like the Queen and the court. None of them will be remembered in history, but I, Christopher Columbus, will always be remembered in history. And he was spot on with that line, because everybody in the world, pretty much everyone, knows who Christopher Columbus was, at least for us living in America and probably Europe. So I'm going to give this movie not a very high score, but you won't be surprised at the score if you watch this yourself. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 4. Not the greatest movie, definitely not the greatest Fredric March film. Sort of disappointing, because you have a big character like Columbus and a great actor like March, and a really great set designs and costumes, but the writing was poor. It just took way too long to get to the actual voyage to the New World. I don't know what they were thinking with that. And it's interesting because I was thinking that while watching, and when I went and read some reviews from when the movie came out, all the reviews said the exact same thing, that way too much time was spent in the court and building up the voyage and not actually on going to the New World. So I'm going to give it 2 stars. Now I have some photos from the film from my Fredric March book. So I'll start over here. There's March as Columbus. And that's when he's meeting with the monk at the monastery. Let's see. And I have a few more photos. I love that photo right there showing him on set. And there's Derek Bond with Columbus. And it's funny because even in these photos in the book, none of them are really of the adventure, the voyage, because there just wasn't much of that. I'm reading here that these reviews say the same thing. The film turns, from Time magazine back then, the film turns an exciting bit of history into a series of dull tableau, I don't know how to say that, in antiqued color. Even 10-year-olds at whom this British-made movie is plainly aimed will find it was about as thrilling as an afternoon spent looking at Christmas cards. The discovery of the New World is practically shoved out of the movie by listless court intrigue directed against Columbus by a palace hanger-on, Francis Sullivan, who is trying to protect some real estate holdings in the Canary Islands. Yeah, true. But you know what? It's still fun to watch an adventure film such as this of explorers and pioneers for me during this time of year. Let me know what you think of my tradition of doing that. Not the greatest film, but I recommend giving it a watch at least once. But happy Thanksgiving to you all. I hope you enjoy your food, and hopefully I can get some good Christmas classic reviews out for you all coming up in the Christmas season.